Thank you for joining us here on Connect and Collaborate Radio. I am your on-air producer, Jon Ekstrom, filling in for Alex Hopkins, and I will do my best to do right by her. And in that case, what better thing to talk about than beer? I've got with me three of the founders of Old 121 Brewhouse, Eric Gupta, Karla Zahrte, Jason Bailey. Thank you all for being here and joining us on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So this is Connect and Collaborate, and you all have connected and collaborated on this brand new venture out in Lakewood. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it? Karla, let's start with you.
Well, we actually are all friends, not just former coworkers. So the three of us, as well as my husband, Brett, have known each other through initial industry meetings for quite a few years, but a lot of conversations took place in those after shift pints where we kind of just would reflect on what would we do if we had an opportunity, where would it be, what kind of field did we want. And we kept coming back to that idea of something in our neighborhood, something that was about, just down the block from where we lived, where we could connect with the people that we already loved having houses next to.
Right, that neighborhood watering hole feel,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Which I feel like sometimes, I've been into craft beer now for a while. And sometimes, it feels like breweries will open and then be like, hey, look, we're also canning. We're already canning. Like, look for us in these restaurants, right?
Right.
Look for us on your neighborhood market shelves. But it's been a little bit different. Hearing you describe that certainly speaks to that. Jason, I know that was part of your philosophy because one of your previous roles was in packaging. So 2 questions for you. One, can you give us a little rundown of your experience in the beer industry? And secondly, how did that inform what you wanted Old 121 to be?
Yeah, I've been in packaging in a couple of places. I got my start at True Brewing. I was one of the people that opened there, started behind the bar. About a year and a half later, I moved to Brewing. I was brewing all the stuff for the draft system there at Broadway. Stuck with that for a little bit over a year, then ended up moving over to Epic where I met Brett. So we started on in the packaging hall there together at about the same time.
Right, and Brett was at Coors prior to that, right?
Coors, and then he was in Renegade. So
Oh,
he and
that's
I
right.
were both kind of hanging out in Baker at about the same time, and then moved up to Rhino within a couple of weeks of each other.
When you were at True and he was at Renegade, did you all cross paths at all?
Nope.
No?
Well, actually,
that's not true.
we
No?
did, but I was being a terrible bartender at the time. So I'm not super great at front of house, but well, I would call myself an acquired taste.
Fair enough.
And fortunately, Brett liked me. He recognized me when we went through the application. Started on there, ended up in packaging with him, and I love packaging. Don't get me wrong.
Of course.
Ended up going to Crooked Stave, doing the same thing there.
Did you and Brett move over there together?
Yeah, it was not really thought of as a package deal, but it sort of worked out that way.
Gotcha.
That's just
Okay.
sort of over the years we have started a working relationship that I don't think either one of us is ready to give up.
Right.
So-
Well, it's like the meeting of Smith and Wesson, right?
yeah, something along those lines. So, did that stuff at both of those places. And again, don't get me wrong, I love packaging. I love packaged beer, but wanting to keep our product closer to us, closer to our neighborhood, so we can keep an eye out on it. It's quality control. It's kind of, it's just not going crazy with it, but you just want to be able to keep in tap with that stuff. So.
Right. And getting back to the beer, right? Because the more you grow, the more you sort of get away from the beer. And right now, this is all you guys. This is straight out of your brain. So tell me a little bit about your philosophy with the types of things that you want to brew.
We're sticking to stuff that we want to enjoy drinking ourselves. There's not necessarily a traditional regional style or anything that we're looking at to kind of paint ourselves in any hole. We just want to make good beer.
Yeah.
We want to make good beer. That's part of what's really nice about having everything on premise is because we get to get excited and share in the excitement of having the things that are rotating through with our customers, because whatever we're drinking or whatever we want people to be excited about there, it's a byproduct of our own excitement about what we're churning out at that point.
Sure. And anytime you get to create is great. I think of the movie High Fidelity, where, oh, Mr. Critic, you're actually getting to put something out yourself. When you put something out yourself, it's really exciting. And that's not to say you and Brett haven't done that.
Yeah.
Because I know Brett did brewing at Renegade. You mentioned you've done it at True. I'm sure there's a big home brewing portfolio for all of you.
Definitely.
But now, now your chips are really on the table. So that's got to be both exciting and daunting.
It's terrifying.
But in a good way, right?
It definitely is. I think it has, these last few weeks are kind of the pressure that's making the diamond that I was thinking about it this morning because Brett and I were talking before we both got to work in the brewery. Like, this is bringing us all together. It's all coming to a head now. All this work's about to happen. We're going to be putting beers in people's hands tomorrow. Everybody's feeling good. So, yeah, that's
that's exciting. I mean, so yeah, I mean, tomorrow we do have some soft open events, but the grand opening is when?
March 23rd. From noon to 11 p.m. We'll actually have a live music, a band, Gator Mountain from Wheat Ridge. Hopefully we'll be doing 2 sets, one in the afternoon, one in the evening, and we will be serving quite a few of these delicious beers that Jason has been alluding to across the day.
And we'll get to those beer styles here in a minute, because, I mean, this is drive time when we are airing this. So, hi thee to the Brewhouse and get yourself a tasty brew. But first, Eric, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
What brought you into this? Because I know you and Karla, although, you've been tangentially related in brewing, that's not your day jobs. So how did you get brought into the fold?
Sure. So I've always kind of been brewery adjacent, I like to say.
Oh, I like that. Brewery adjacent.
My wife has worked in the brewing industry for a long time. So we met Karla and Jason and Brett through Cricket's Dave, and we've got to know them pretty well, over the past several years. And Jatan and I, my wife, have both been pretty excited about beer, our whole lives.
Sure.
We've followed the truck to get the new release. We've woken up at 2 a.m. to get to Glenwood Springs in time. We've always been really jazzed and excited about beer. So we got in a discussion with these guys, and the opportunity came up to join and be a part of the team. And I jumped at that just to hopefully give some of my expertise to this group and hopefully get some experience myself in managing a brewery as well.
Well, that sounds fantastic. We'll keep the relevant cultural references rolling. With old school, it's just so good when it hits your lips.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, what can you say? So speaking of the beer that will hit people's lips, coming up here on the 23rd, what are some of the things that you're working on? And I know, Karla, there's one from our past that you're really excited about.
Absolutely. The Honey Brown Ale was one of those that, in kind of tossing back ideas in a driveway conversation, that was the throwback to an early style that we kind of fell in love with but didn't see anymore. And we wanted to kind of bring that memory from ourselves back to a craft beer that you could buy again and get in our brewery.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think about Honey Brown, and it's one of those things where I probably didn't intentionally stop drinking it.
Right.
Right? I just didn't see it.
You just stopped seeing it.
Right.
Because you could get a bomber of it for $1.49. At least you could in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2004. So.
Well, perfect. We are staying very, very timely here with high fidelity, old school in 2004. That's perfect. Jason, what else do you have on tap there? What are we looking at?
We'll have some of our core beers. Our house lager will be on. We'll be doing winter stout, which we're going to do a batch or two of this stout and then kind of change it seasonally, but keeping in mind that people like to slow it down a little bit with their stouts during the colder months. We'll have an Irish Red Ale that we did, a collaboration beer that we did with the Grateful Gnome that'll be at Collaboration Fest also.
Which is coming up this weekend, right?
Yeah, what is it, the 16th? Yeah.
Go to cobrt.com/radio. You'll find this episode. There will be a link to Collaboration Fest on
Yes.
There's too many dates and locations right now.
I can only imagine. How many days or how many hours a day are you actually working right now?
Well, we're keeping it as far as physical time to 8 to 10, so we're not weighing too hard on ourselves, but everybody's got a computer or some kind of screen in front of them doing work stuff for most of the nights.
And how many hours a day is it living in your head?
24.
24?
Solid.
Gotcha. Okay, so you mentioned house lager. I got to give you guys props for this. House lager, rolling out with a lager right away, because, I mean, that's something of a high wire act if you know anything about brewing, because lager's not a place where you can hide any flaws, right?
Right, and kind of flying blind into the system with that was kept us guessing for a little bit, but we found a curve that we really like. The system's been cooperative. Everything's been really predictable in that regard. So things have worked out for us well. It's been really intuitive. So fortunately, there was just good stuff in place when we bought the place. So.
Gotcha. You mentioned the collaboration beer with Grateful Gnome.
Yep.
And that, to me, has one of the best names of any beer I've ever heard.
Yeah, tastes like beer, 1 star. It's one that Bess kind of threw that one at me. She's like, it's got to do this. So we just kind of came up with a beer that we knew that we would like to drink, which was perfect because, I mean, the beer for us, I mean, certainly can't speak for Bess, but she and I have a very similar appreciation for clean process, good, easy drinking beer that you can really spend some time with.
Yeah.
And still walk around afterwards. So.
And you said that's an English dark mild?
Just an English mild.
Just an English mild.
Yeah, didn't go the dark route on that one this time, but turned out really nicely. In addition to that, we'll also have a barrel blend that we're doing with our friends from Bayer. It's a dark sour with juniper and sage, and we're all really excited with how that turned out. What else?
Pale.
Yep, we'll have the pale. I'm kegging up pale today after we get done with this.
And that recipe was an early creation as well, because it was back to that idea of, everyone keeps adding things and doing more and more, and we kind of wanted just to strip that experience back to what basic idea of beer we fell in love with.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And I don't want to say this is necessarily a reaction to previous places of employment, but you look at Renegade, and you look at Epic, and you look at True, and you look at Crooked Stave, and a lot of times they're kind of out there style-wise. I mean, there's a lot of really daring things going on, and I mean, they're all terrific beers, but that can be limiting if you're sort of new to craft beer. In terms of your philosophy of neighborhood watering hole, did that play into the way that you wanted to structure this?
Definitely. It definitely played into the neighborhood of Lakewood. Denver has such a high concentration in some of these neighborhoods where they now expect you to go, what's the next level? What's the next level? And everyone's trying to one up each other. I feel like you go a little bit west. We want to take the speed down a little bit and kind of earn those relationships in the neighborhood. So it's a long-term plan. We want people to have something to come back to that they love. And over time, we will kind of put in a few things that maybe expands their need to come for the next best thing to us.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sounds like, I mean, there is always room for experimentation. And you mentioned that, with some wild ales and things like that. But at your core, that neighborhood watering hole, and that influenced the design of the tap room too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you have to experiment. You have to do things to press yourself, but you can't operate on that frontier all the time. There's got to be some good, solid touchstone to come back to. So, we can find a happy medium with that. And then it's kind of the same thing in having a space be welcoming. We are 100% a brewery. We're making all that stuff. We're making the beers and the sodas. I wish that Brett was here to talk a little bit more about the soda side of things, because I'm not as well versed as him, but we're doing something there that it's a place that you want to be. It's that can get lost sometimes in a brewery. Like there's certain things that people like to see that are not necessarily on the same level as just a welcoming space, and we kind of went more for that neighborhood bar feel.
Sure.
Within that regard.
Well, that's something I wanted to get into more, because Karla, you and I had talked about this previously. Doing the craft soda angle. There are folks out there who want to go to a brewery but don't always want to drink beer. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. I think regardless of time of day, although more often I was finding myself needing something other than beer earlier in the day, particularly if I had also been out the night before.
Certainly.
But I think recognizing that we want to include everyone in an option and be both friendly to all ages. So you're looking at, how do I engage with more than just water, and what does that mean? And so we started creating ideas and doing test recipes for a root beer, because frankly everyone loves root beer.
What's not to love?
That is a standard out there. But from there we really grew in some options, and we are going to have 2 different hopped sodas. One is a dry hop soda and one is a sweet hop soda. And then we have also done some experimentation with raspberry cream soda that we hope to have on soon as well. And it's just between that and then being able to work with Tico to offer draft teas from a local Colorado company, we really felt like we started to have a menu of craft beverage that actually could address everyone's palates.
Yeah, 100%. And I know that I have 2 kids, age 2 and 4,
Yep.
and I know that when my wife, she loves going to breweries too. We always try and hit, something new on a Friday, or we hit old favorites or whatever. When she was pregnant, she was missing out a lot.
Yeah.
And there was one brewery we went to, and I won't say the name, just in the interest of decorum, but it was up in the Highlands, and they didn't have beers there, but it was right around Halloween, so they had a bowl of mini Snickers out. She has those. She goes, I am pregnant. I am ready for some chocolate. This is perfect.
Well, and we have really tried to be very intentional with how much sugar we put into the sodas we're making and keep that on the lighter side of things so that if you're a parent and you are going to let your child have one of these sodas, that they're not going to start bouncing off the walls.
Right.
Either.
You don't want to feel and you don't want to feel terrible afterward. You don't want to get that
Yes.
sugar crash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes good sense. Eric, from your perspective, coming into this sort of brewery adjacent, what have you learned about this process of getting a brewery up and running?
It is incredibly complicated.
Really? What has been most surprising to you?
I think just the amount of licensing that is required to get something like this off the ground. Not to speak of the fact that we had a government shutdown in the middle of our licensure, but
Oh, jeez.
it is just incredibly complex, the amount of different agencies you have to talk to, the amount of different paperwork that you have to put through. It can be daunting at times, and I applaud Karla for taking care of most of that for us.
Karla, you've been mostly spearheading this, right?
From a kind of compliance, licensing business side, I definitely took a lion's share of that work, but it's a team effort, and certainly there was times when everyone pitched in on, okay, how many copies should I take down to this office, and should I take the check to this person? I'm like, yes, please, because I still have a day job, and
Right.
It's hard for me to sometimes get that delivery aspect for paperwork. So we definitely all pulled together as a team.
Well, and the thing that's amazing to me as we sit here in March, I think back to the rules in Colorado changing right around the new year. January 1st, grocery stores, convenience stores can start selling beer. In addition to, Colorado is known for launching breweries all the time. I can't imagine what that licensing process was like as everyone and their brother is going to the office and applying. Did you encounter that?
Absolutely. It wasn't just all the in-state existing entities that wanted to be able to sell in grocery stores. You had all these outside of the state companies going, if I can't get in before January 1st, I'm not going to get on a shelf for the next 6 to 9 months.
Oh, my.
So it was everyone relicensing. I can't even imagine the level of work that those poor employees at the LED had to get through, but they were very helpful in the end. We have the licenses, and however long it took, it gave us a little bit more time to kind of noodle on a few other brewing ideas. So
Well, sometimes you take the bad with the good, and there are always silver linings, and that allows you to tinker a little bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is good. Jason, has it been a challenge for you, you are running back of the house here.
Yeah.
Has it been a challenge for you getting up to speed on this new system, or was it pretty intuitive?
It was pretty intuitive. What we walked into there was minimal troubleshooting. There were a couple of things, just learning the plumbing, how everything moves across the system.
Sure.
After that, it's really lent itself to just ripping. It's a nice setup. Everything in there is overbuilt for what we're doing, so we don't have to worry about pushing anything super hard. It's been nice.
Well, it probably bears mention here that you're moving into the old Caution brewing space.
Yep.
And Caution was one of the sort of pioneers of the taproom only model, at least with the way they started. And they were, out east at first,
Yep.
transitioned out west. The opportunity came up. They were looking to transition, came to you guys. It's great that you had a turnkey system.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Did that play into, as you all were sort of formulating this opportunity, talking over after shift beers, was that almost a prerequisite for you?
It made it very enticing.
Gotcha.
It
was hard to turn down at that point, right?
Looking around at some of that stuff and thinking about, oh yeah, just even laying this out, especially they use the space very efficiently, and that was one just another thing to have thrown into the mix. Like looking out, like, we could have figured it out, but it would have taken a long time.
Right.
It would have been that much more frustrating. So that was nice to have that shot down.
Right. You don't have to walk uphill as much
Indeed.
Yeah.
as you would have
And
if
in
you.
way less snow.
If we're being what our parents always
Yes.
told us, walking to school.
We all had shoes on for this walk. It was fine.
It was a better walk. It was up a gentle hill. You're not climbing Mount Everest, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've all been friends with people who've done it from a zero threshold,
From
and
scratch.
just knowing what that process looks like, and be able to
Crazy.
being able to walk into something that offered us that much more room forward in the process was a huge deal to us, and it really made it financially a very feasible option to move forward with.
That's great.
Yeah.
So this is taproom only model. What is the story with food at the brewery? What are you guys looking at? Partnerships in the neighborhood? What are you doing?
Well, that's definitely a question that comes up all the time, because if you're consuming alcohol, we would prefer that you're also consuming food.
Yeah. Lay down a layer of food.
Yes.
before
Before,
you get in there.
during, after.
Absolutely.
But we are really lucky in our location. We are right next to the top retail Wingstop location in the state. We've all kind of witnessed the crazy amount of traffic that just churns through there on a daily basis, and we've all partook in quite a few
I can't
wings.
wait till that line dies down. Yeah.
And we actually have Johnny's New York Pizza directly across from us as well, and we're really working on building business-to-business relationships with them to kind of make sure we have great food offerings for our customers, and let them know that we will also be increasing their traffic right as soon as we open.
Well, I mean, that's got to make everyone's landlord really excited too, because these are places that have a lot of foot traffic and people come in. They're more inclined to stick around and check out the other businesses in the area, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we also have Barley Haven, which is a homebrew shop
Oh, wow.
just next door to us, which is great for both those last minute ingredient needs for ourselves, as well as being another way to reach out to the community that already loves beer. And we can have more conversations about what recipes they've tried, different things that are kind of changing within that recipe realm. So it's a really fantastic location.
Wow. Fantastic. All right. In our remaining time, let's talk about the grand opening, which is coming up on the 23rd. You said noon to 11. What can we expect there? You mentioned some of the beers. I think there will be some surprises as well, right?
Definitely.
Entertainment, what can people expect? Are you dog friendly? Are you kid friendly? Give us the rundown.
Eric?
Sure. Well, as far as dogs, we'd love to have well-behaved dogs on our patio out front. And as far as kids, we're absolutely kids friendly as well. So we'll have, obviously a variety of craft sodas for kids to partake in. And we'll have some nice games, some board games. We have a little Pac-Man machine in there that they can play as well. Yeah.
Like one of those like tabletop kind of deals?
Exactly.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So if you have two kids, you send them both back there, and you go play each other. Come back when you can't figure out what game to play, because it has 60 games on it.
Oh,
so
60 games.
well,
I can
keep going, and it's free.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I can tell you, if I send my kids back there, I'm gonna get a beer and I'm gonna have to be referee.
Well, that works too.
Because but there's beer there.
Yep.
That's what matters.
Yes.
Yep.
What is the address? Where can people find you online?
Okay.
How can people get in touch with Old 121 Brewhouse?
We are at 1057 South Wadsworth Boulevard. We're Suite 60. We're right in the middle. So that's on that west side of the road. If you're heading south on Wadsworth, right before Mississippi.
Okay.
So you should be able to see Old 121 sign from there. Our website, old121brewhouse.com. We are on Facebook and Instagram with @old121beer.
Fantastic.
I'm like, what else did you
that's
ask?
perfect. I'm like, I'll bet she can keep going. But that'll about do it. Jason Bailey, Karla Zahrte, Eric Gupta, Old 121 Brewhouse founders. If you want to hear this episode or any episode in the Connect and Collaborate series, go to cobrt.com. Click on radio, search Old 121 Brewhouse. You can find out more. This will all be linked there. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Thanks, guys, for being a part of the show.
Thanks so
Thank you
much
for
for
having
having us.